Welcome to Between Two Perns. My name is Jackson Dickert, and I'm here with horror novelist and creative writing professor, Andrew Najberg.
It's great to be here, man.
Now, Andrew, you teach several courses at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. Creative writing, poetry, creative nonfiction, but you also teach post-World War II Japanese literature. It's so nice to meet a professor who takes modern Japanese literature seriously. And so I was wondering what you thought about the most recent arc of One Piece.
My embarrassing confession is that the most recent thing I've explored has been the TV adaptation of One Piece, which I will say puts a lot of other adaptations to shame. And it was an absolute blast, but I'm terribly behind.
So, seems like maybe you're not a very good professor of modern Japanese literature.
Oh no, I mean the first thing I tell my students when they walk into the class is, to begin with, I am not an expert. I probably have massive and gaping holes in my knowledge, and we're just going to do our best to muddle through this shit show together.
I actually looked up your Rate My Professor reviews, and you have some interesting reviews from past students that I thought we could explore a little bit.
Absolutely, absolutely.
One student wrote, "Grades heavily and harsh, talks a lot for 50 minutes about nothing." Another student gave you a 1.5, which is your lowest rating, and wrote, "I did not like his way of teaching. He talks for the whole class period, and you don't get anything out of it." Have you learned to talk less while you're teaching?
I've tried to have lessons of staring off into space, staring at the flat gray wall, observing the slow change of light on a whiteboard with nothing written on it. And it seems to me that disengages the students even more.
Not every student has such negative things to say about you as a professor, however. Another student wrote that he's incredibly intelligent.
I mean, this is kind of the same vein where, I mean, students miss the mark all the time. I mean, I'm dumb as shit.
Yeah, could you try to say something incredibly intelligent?
I'm not sure. Maybe if I had like a chart with words to point to, and then I could kind of try to get an order that sounds good.
Yeah.
That might be a good way to do it.
This isn't a New York Times puzzle. This is an interview.
But I am pretty sure that this is, in fact, a New York Times puzzle. We are currently playing Wordle as we speak.
Wow. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, the full quote wasn't that you were incredibly intelligent. The full quote actually said, "He's incredibly intelligent and humorous." So could you actually walk that back and now say something that's both incredibly intelligent and humorous?
Absolutely not. I mean, the second that these two words get put together, I mean, can you be intelligent and humorous? I don't see these working together. I mean, So can you provide an example? I mean, I'm a teacher. I'm going to work best from getting examples.
But you're the teacher. You're supposed to be teaching. I shouldn't be teaching you.
Oh, that's nonsense. If we can go back to Socrates at that point, and the very foundation of pretty much all modern dialectic learning, which is, a conversation among equals to achieve the truth. And if we know anything, it is that we know nothing.
Didn't they kill Socrates? Overall, though, you have a 4.8 rating as a professor, which is a great rating. That's excellent. Your debut horror novel, though, The Morbius Door, has a 3.87 rating on Goodreads. Do you think this is a sign that you're simply a better teacher than you are a writer?
Well, I mean, that's actually a tough one because, this is where we just immediately fall back to ratings don't mean anything. That's the natural defense in this situation.
Is that the one you're taking?
I think it's where I'm going to start. Okay. We'll see where we go from there. I think it's a solid path. It's tried and true. Sure. So, yeah, we can see where this leads us.
Okay. Ratings mean nothing.
Exactly. Yeah, ratings, awards, anything that we can say or think about things. We're really just kind of slowly devolving into a cesspit of meaninglessness. If meaning were a septic tank, At this point, the tank would have, at some point, filled up and sealed off, concreted over, and then stored in some sort of underground site, and out in the Nevada desert. And we're left with just this vacuous pit where all the shit just pours right down in, and we eventually just fall in and drown.
Yeah, that was a 3.87. Speaking of Goodreads, I stalked yours, and you are my favorite kind of Goodreads user. In 2023, every book you rated was 5 stars. It seems like your bar for quality fiction is really low, which makes sense given the quality of fiction that you write at. So I was wondering if you wanted to read and review my book, because I could always use more 5-star reviews.
I'm always glad to take a look at something.
Great.
I will say that there is a secret to my selective magic in always finding a winner.
Okay.
And that is that I don't review the books that aren't winners.
Wow, that's really interesting that you say that, because you've only given one book on Goodreads a bad rating. Do you know what book that was?
I don't remember.
It was 2 stars. The book was Twilight. Why didn't you like Twilight? And if you usually don't give bad reviews, why did you give Twilight a bad review?
So the first thing I'll say is, in all honesty, that was a really long time ago that I left that one.
Oh, this is a classic defense, yeah.
I really had an issue with the way the Twilight series absolutely butchers the concept of what a vampire is. To the point where I think it actually does damage to the myth to call them vampires. I might have been okay. I might have even given it more stars if they hadn't called those creatures vampires. Instead, if they come up with their own creature that was kind of like vampires, but also for some bizarre, stupid reason sparkled golden in sunlight, I might have been more accepting of the idea and been like, well, at least they're trying to invent something new rather than utterly debasing something that is, really classic.
This is giving big Team Jacob energy. Let's talk a bit about your published work. You wrote a horror novel called The Morbius Door. Why did you do that?
If you read the opening stretch of it, you know that really early on the main character, or the opening main character's, about roughly 12 years old. His name's Stuart, and he dies really early on. And of course, the obvious reason was I wanted to kill a child character in the first 60 pages. I mean, that's the whole impetus to the book beginning, because who doesn't want to do that? Really, I grew up in New Hampshire. I moved to Tennessee when I was 17, and I grew up in Nashua, a small New England town. In fact, actually, some of the very opening lines pay homage to where I grew up, including my favorite ice cream shop being mentioned right at the beginning. And that whole opening chapter is set in a park I used to play in, and then really the book is very much a love letter to small town New England horror. Things like Classic King and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I actually really did. That's how I started in writing and literature, was really getting invested in horror as a kid and wanting to write little, short stories and stuff like that. And so that really actually was the drive for the book.
I was thinking you should have called it The Morbius Door. And then when they open the door, Morbius comes out and says, it's Morbin time. And then that would actually be a lot scarier than everything that you just said.
I mean, that really was weighed as a serious possibility. I try to sometimes say it's Mobin time, but it just doesn't have the same ring. That R, it's amazing how much it changes the word and its weight.
Yeah. You also wrote a horror novel called Gollitok. Why did you do that?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, just to f*** with people. I wanted a book with a word on the title, as a title, where people look at it and they're like, what the hell is that?
You succeeded.
I'm really thrilled. I mean, that really was a guiding principle. I mean, isn't that really like a huge chunk of why we write, is just to utterly befuddle and bewilder people? That way people look at our work and they're like, why the hell did that get brought into existence?
In Gollitok, the characters find terrifying secrets within the prison of Gollitok. What terrifying secret could there possibly be inside a prison? It's a prison, there's prisoners inside, and that's not a secret.
Well, now to be fair, the prisoners are long, long dead. It's an abandoned prison. And so, of course, at that point, you have things like, where did the prisoners hide their contraband? Once the prisoners are all gone, then we can really investigate the nuts and bolts of being, incarcerated living.
Okay. So you're just trying to find bubblegum and ramen in the walls in Gollitok?
Don't forget sharpened toothbrushes. There's a whole category of shivs that's, made of ordinary innocuous objects. I'm sure somebody managed to get something like a glass eye and turn it into a throwing star. Then you can throw it and say, here's looking at you when it pierces them in the eye. So not only do you get a really solid classic movie reference, a good quip while murdering somebody, you have also thrown a sharpened eye into someone else's eye.
That actually sounds awesome. Does that happen in the book?
I wish it did.
You wrote a book about post-nuclear war apocalypse where characters go to an abandoned prison on an island and look for sharpened toothbrushes. That's the plot of your book.
More or less, yeah. I think that's a solid nutshell. Maybe there's also things like, buried historical secrets, buried experiments and things like that. There may be some sort of freakish mutant species of bird that's also extremely vicious. There's, creatures there, a possible ghost as well. There's certainly a lot of things, that could be hidden on the island. But yeah, I think my money is that they're going to find a sharpened toothbrush. Perhaps stuck into a sharpened toothpaste tube.
You've gone on record saying that horror relies on an author setting up the premise well so that the character actions are believable to get them into the horrific situations that they get themselves into. Can you explain to me why anyone would ever go to an island that is shaped like a skull? I can't think of a bigger red flag than that.
Well, so one of my favorite artists has always been H.R. Geiger. And there's a documentary that was made about his life not too long ago before his death. In the very opening, the first thing that he says is, when I was 3, I was given my first human skull. So when you think about it, that indicates that there are, in fact, places and whole peoples to whom human skulls are a perfectly acceptable childhood gift. And so my guess at that point would be that this team sets forward simply because they want to relive their childhood joys and think about the day mommy gave them their first exhumed skull.
Okay, and it's got nothing to do with the first live-action Scooby-Doo movie where they go to Skull Island?
No, that was influential, of course, but that's just one of those things that helped steer me as an author towards this iconic image. Because you have this childhood skull that you used to drag around on a string behind you. You'd curl up with it next to you on your pillow, and then you also have your childhood memories of Scooby-Doo and other similar films. Like, what about Castle Grayskull? It's there in the name, Gray Skull. I wouldn't rule out the possibility that at least one member of this team was in fact a He-Man fan.
Wow. So in your headcanon, though, is Gollitok set in the same universe as the live-action Scooby-Doo movie?
Well, that's our universe, so of course.
Scooby-Doo is real? So you've got a scary book about doors, and then you've got a scary book about an island prison. Those things aren't that scary. And I have some ideas for some more scary things that you could write about.
All right.
Taxes. Being in your 20s.
Ooh.
Health insurance.
Oof.
Deciding on 3 meals to eat every single day.
That is hell on earth. That's why I don't eat breakfast.
And general existential dread. Oh wait, I already said 20s. Your first 2 horror novels were for adults. But now you've got a new horror novel coming out, March 26, 2024, called The Neverborn Thief, which is a young adult book. Mm-hmm. Do you plan on continuing to creep your way down the age demographics until you find an age group that you can scare with something besides mediocre prose?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm really trying to come up with a line of prenatal horror. Because that's an entirely unreached market. Nobody creates like sounds to horrify growing fetuses in the womb.
Yeah.
And we know that they respond to sound. There's all this stuff about, the importance of parents' voices during gestation and stuff like that. So, I mean, think of the opportunities to build lifelong horror fanatics.
And you would think that those babies would grow up with very strong hearts. Andrew Najberg, you're a genius. Thank you.
I mean, if I can bring something to the world that's going to change it, that may be it.
I noticed you didn't say change it for the better. So, Steve Stred, who is a 2-time Splatterpunk Award-nominated author of Mastodon and Churn the Soil, he blurbed your upcoming novel by saying, "It is a magical, inventive tale about a boy, a strange world, and the lengths he'll go to reconnect with his stolen shadow. This one grabbed me on page 1 and never let go." Andrew, his family misses him. When will you let him go?
Well, I mean, to be fair, the way it really works is this. When you open up the book, a hand reaches out through the pages, clamps onto your arm. And so, I mean, technically speaking, he's really just run away. He's free to do as he pleases. He just has the book hanging off of his arm. After all, I mean, that's how he was still able to post to things like social media about the book.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just, it's just a, I think a clever supernatural marketing device.
While we're here, actually, this is kind of off topic from like books and stuff, but you seem like a guy with great taste. And so I wanted to get your opinions on a few interior design features because we're currently debating like buying a new home versus renovating, and I'm trying to figure out like what to look for. I was wondering what you think about split foyers.
I think they're largely the result of confused architects. They're sitting there drafting the plans, and I've done enough pencil drawing work and that kind of stuff that I know how things smudge when your hand is on it. So I kind of wonder if maybe there was floor 1 and floor 2, and as they were writing, they smudged it, and then they thought it was floor 1/2, and so they created this space that's not either floor, and really just meant to confuse your pets.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think about vaulted ceilings in a kitchen?
I mean, that just really just depends on how you feel about massive heating bills and huge carbon footprints.
Okay.
Because you're guaranteed to rack it up with that.
I don't really care about carbon footprint, so it's not a big deal.
No, I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, if you look at the way we're driving the world, we're going to blow it up in 8 different ways before the climate ever kills us, so.
So would you say that the ideal form a house can take is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, square foot home with a car garage and a back porch that sells for $1,000 and is located
No, because it contains a lot of the features we're talking about. It is a split level. Yeah, I mean, really, there's several needs for which that house is not suitable.
You're talking about that house. Is this a house you're familiar with?
Nah, not really. Just really kind of spatting on at that point.
That's weird that you say that because on your website, on the contact form of your website, it has the physical address of where you live, and it is the address I just read off. And so I was wondering what compelled you as a horror novelist and college professor to publicize your physical home address.
Actually, to tell you the truth, I did not know that was on there.
Yeah, you're welcome, Andrew. You're welcome.
All right.
Might want to take that one off.
Yeah, I actually will be doing something about that.
Yeah, that seems like a good idea. I read online that you went to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. That's where I studied creative writing as well. And can I just say how grateful I am that they apparently got decent professors from the time that I took the class since you took the class.
Yeah. I mean, the folk who were there when I was there, they're either, getting really up there in years, obviously past their prime. I mean, I can't help but immediately think of, Michael Knight. He's definitely gone downhill since those days.
Michael Knight?
Yeah, Michael Knight.
Your professor was Michael Knight?
Yeah, we cracked tons of Knight Rider jokes. It's unavoidable, of course. If you got that name, you got to expect people to talk about Kid around you.
My professor was Michael Knight.
Really? Was it actually, though, the Michael Knight from the show?
Yeah. No. It must have been the same guy because it wasn't the Michael Knight from the show, and it wasn't the Michael Knight who writes for the Prima game guides either. We had the same creative writing professor.
Wouldn't it be nice if we were older, then we wouldn't have to wait so long? And wouldn't it be nice to live together in the kind of world where we belong? No one's gonna make it that much better when we can say goodnight and stay together. Wouldn't it be nice if we could wake up in the morning when the day is new, after having spent the day together, hold each other close the whole night through? What happy times together we've been spending. I wish that every kiss was never ending. But wouldn't it be?
Seriously, get back. Do not open that door.
And I'm not responsible for what's going to come out of there if you open that.
It's Morbid time.